Welcome to Twisted Truths, where betrayal meets brutal payback, and where the most unexpected twists expose what people are really capable of. This story isn't just shocking, it's personal. My name is James. I'm 41, live in Texas, and until recently, I believed I had it all: a thriving tech company, a sprawling Mediterranean-style mansion in Highland Park, a beautiful wife, and a son who meant the world to me. Now, I sleep with the lights on, in a house that used to feel like home but now feels like a hollowed shell of trust and illusion. The betrayal didn't come all at once. It seeped into my life like a slow leak, unnoticed until the damage was irreversible. 11 years ago, I married Claire. Blonde, quick-witted, captivating, she was the woman I saw standing by my side forever. We bought the house together, 10,000 square feet of dreams, white stone walls, Spanish red tile roof, and oak trees older than any living soul on the block. We made promises in that house. Built dreams inside it. Then came Ethan, our son, our legacy. The boy had my curls and her intensity. Sharp, kind, always watching. Maybe too closely. When my business exploded into one of the fastest-growing software firms in Dallas, I was gone more than I was home: boardrooms in Berlin, contract signings in San Francisco. Always hustling, always trying to build. I told myself Claire understood. She'd supported me through the tough early years. But I didn't see it, the way her eyes began to glaze over when I spoke about expansion. The way she turned inward when I returned home, distant and distracted. I chalked it up to stress. That was my first mistake. I remember the day the first crack showed. I had flown back early from New York, surprised Claire and Ethan by walking through the door unannounced. Claire wasn't home. Ethan was alone, watching a movie with Max, our old Labrador. "Where's your mom?" I asked. "She said she had a yoga thing," he replied, eyes glued to the screen. At 8 p.m. That didn't sit right. Later that week, I noticed her phone was always face down. Her perfume was stronger. She began dressing like she was headed to cocktail hour instead of brunch with friends. When I asked, she scoffed. "You're paranoid, James. Maybe focus on your company instead of my outfits." I wanted to believe her. I did. But something had shifted. The warmth in her voice was gone. My gut told me something was off. I started coming home more often. Canceling meetings. Watching. Listening. And Ethan, God, kids see more than we give them credit for. He started asking questions. "Dad, why does Mom keep whispering on the phone when you're not home?" Or, "Why does Mom lock the bedroom door when she showers?" It made my stomach churn. But I still didn't want to believe it. I was a man who built empires, surely I hadn't failed in the one thing that mattered most. But then came the call. I was in a hotel in Seattle. Jet-lagged. Half asleep. Ethan called. His voice was a whisper. "Dad. I need to tell you something. Promise you won't tell Mom." I sat up straight. "Of course, son. What is it?" "There's a man, he's been coming around a lot. I don't like him. He's got tattoos. All over his arms. Even his neck." I swallowed hard. "Who is he?" I heard Mom call him Micah. The name hit me like a hammer. I'd never heard it before. Not once. "He stays here, Dad." "Like, in the house?" "Sometimes at night." I nearly dropped the phone. "She smiles at him the way she used to smile at you." My mouth went dry. My heart thundered against my chest. My brain raced to keep up. But what Ethan said next burned into my bones. "Dad, once, I heard Mom tell him, 'Don't worry, he never comes home anyway. This house is ours now.'" I couldn't breathe. I'd spent over a decade building a sanctuary for my family. Now some tattooed stranger, a man I'd never met, was claiming it as his own. And Claire, the woman I once held under Texas sunsets, was letting it happen. I stared out the hotel window, raindrops sliding down like tears. I should have trusted my gut. I should have asked more questions. Come home more. Paid attention. But I didn't. Now, I had to make a decision. Let it slide. Or find out the truth, no matter how ugly it was. After Ethan's call, I sat frozen on the hotel bed in Seattle, staring at nothing while the rain battered the windows like it was trying to warn me. My chest felt like it was caving in. My 10-year-old son had just told me there was a man living in my house. A tattooed man named Micah. A stranger who was getting too comfortable. And my wife, Claire, was letting it happen. No. Not just letting it. Welcoming it. I could barely sleep that night. My mind kept replaying Ethan's words. She smiles at him the way she used to smile at you. It's strange how grief works. There's the initial slap of betrayal. But then comes the slow suffocation, the way your own thoughts turn against you. The way every memory gets tainted. That vacation in Maui where she kissed me under the waterfall. Was that real? The nights we stayed up decorating Ethan's room together, was that just convenience? I kept telling myself, maybe it's not what it looks like. Maybe she's just lonely. Maybe Micah is just a friend. But something in Ethan's voice, his caution, the fear, told me it wasn't just about infidelity. This was deeper. Darker. I called Claire the next morning. She didn't answer. Texted her. Nothing. Finally, that evening, she replied with a cold, emotionless line. Busy. Everything is fine. Talk later. Fine. Everything was fine. Meanwhile, my son was calling me whispering from corners of our house because some tattooed man was sleeping in my bed. The next few days in Seattle were unbearable. I went through the motions, pitching to investors, attending meetings, but my heart wasn't in it. My body was in boardrooms. My soul was trapped inside that house. I started analyzing every frame of my FaceTime calls with Ethan. Once, I spotted a man's boots by the staircase. Black. Worn. Not mine. Another time, Ethan moved the phone too fast and I caught a blur of a leather jacket draped over the kitchen chair. A jacket I'd never seen before. I began searching. I didn't even know the guy's last name, Micah, but I had a description. Tattooed arms. Neck tattoos. Scar on the cheek. On a whim, I started checking mugshots online. FBI. Texas Department of Public Safety. Most wanted lists. I don't know what made me do it. Instinct, maybe. Or something in that blurry video Ethan sent of Claire and Micah laughing in the living room. And then I found him. Micah Daniel Reed. Age, 38. Tattoos on both arms. Snake wrapped around the neck. A long scar running down the left side of his face like it had been carved with a blade. Wanted for multiple charges, fraud, battery, aggravated assault, armed robbery. Known to use aliases. Considered dangerous. And that was the man in my house. Near my son. My hands trembled. I tried calling Ethan. No answer. I texted him. Don't go near him. Stay in your room. I'm coming home. Still nothing. I checked flights. Nothing direct until morning. I couldn't wait. I booked the earliest red-eye I could find, threw my things in a bag, and headed straight to the airport. The entire flight back to Dallas felt like I was being slowly boiled alive in my own thoughts. I kept picturing Ethan locked in a room. I kept picturing Claire in our kitchen, pouring wine for a criminal while our family rotted from the inside. When the wheels touched down at Dallas-Fort Worth, I ran out like a man on fire. I called Claire again. Still no answer. Ethan's phone rang once, then straight to voicemail. I called the house line. Disconnected. I don't remember giving the cab driver the address. I just remember the look in his eyes as I barked, Highland Park. Now. Step on it. When the gate to the house came into view, my heart sank. The lights were on. Music played faintly. But the front door was locked. Tightly. That door had never been locked when I was out of town. Claire always left it open for me. I banged on it. Claire. Open up. Ethan. Nothing. Then. I heard it. A faint, muffled cry. Dad, help me. Ethan. Everything went white. I didn't think, I acted. I sprinted to the side of the house, picked up the heaviest stone I could find, and hurled it through the glass patio door. The crash exploded through the night. I stepped through, glass slicing my palms, but I felt no pain. My body moved on instinct. I ran through the house, calling Ethan's name. No answer. I took the stairs 2 at a time, nearly tripping. And then I heard voices, one deep, one familiar. I kicked in the bedroom door. And what I saw made my soul leave my body. Ethan was tied to a chair. Ropes cutting into his small wrists. His cheeks tear-streaked. His eyes wide. Claire stood there. In a tight red dress. Looking calm. Beside her stood him. Micah. Exactly as Ethan had described. Tattoos, scar, cold dead eyes. He held a knife in his hand, lazily tracing the air with it like it was an extension of himself. So the husband finally shows up, Micah sneered. I didn't even look at him. I looked at Claire. This is our son, I shouted. And you're letting this animal, threaten him? Claire didn't flinch. She just crossed her arms. You left us, James. You were always gone. Micah's here. He takes care of me. I couldn't speak. Rage doesn't come with words, it comes with instinct. Micah stepped forward. You should leave, he growled. This house isn't yours anymore. Before I could react, Ethan screamed. Dad, behind you. Micah lunged. The knife in his hand glinted like lightning in the dim bedroom light. But I was faster. Fueled by something beyond fear, something primal, I ducked and slammed into him, driving him backwards into the dresser. The knife clattered to the floor, but the man was strong. His arms coiled with muscle and rage, wrapped around me like steel. We grappled, fists flying, until I slammed my elbow into his scarred face. He roared, dazed, and I scrambled for the knife on the floor. That's when I heard Ethan whimper. I turned to him, ropes cutting into his small arms, cheeks wet with tears. I lunged over and cut him free. Dad, he gasped, clinging to me. I was so scared. I've got you, I whispered. You're safe now. Claire still hadn't moved. She just stood there like a statue, arms folded, eyes hollow. What the hell is wrong with you? I shouted at her. You let him tie up your son. Her voice was cold. Measured. He was being disrespectful. He needed discipline. Disrespectful. My hands shook. I wanted to scream, to rage, to tear this house apart, but then, blue and red lights splashed through the windows. Sirens. Tires screeched outside. Micah spun toward the window. You called the cops. I didn't, I said, breathless. But I'm glad someone did. He tried to run, but I grabbed him again, this time holding the knife. Move and I'll end you right here. Moments later, the front door burst open. Dallas PD. Hands where we can see them. Officers swarmed the room. Guns drawn. Within seconds, Micah was pinned to the floor and cuffed. Micah Daniel Reed, one officer said, scanning him. "You're under arrest. You've got quite the record, pal." I backed away, finally catching my breath, holding Ethan close. Another officer turned to me. "Did you know who he was?" I shook my head. "I found him on the FBI database a few days ago. My son told me he was here. I came home immediately." They nodded, took statements, and escorted Micah out. Claire sat on the edge of the bed, face pale, hands shaking. "I didn't know who he was," she whispered. "I swear. I was lonely, James. You were never here. You invited a felon into our home," I snapped. "You let him tie up Ethan." Her face crumpled. "I didn't mean for it to go that far. I just wanted to scare him. Scare our son." I looked at her like I'd never seen her before. "You're not the woman I married." She reached out, desperate. "James, wait. We can fix this." I stepped back. "No, Claire. Some things can't be fixed." I took Ethan and walked out, not even glancing back. 2 days later. I sat at a lawyer's office with Ethan beside me. Claire had moved out. Or been pushed out, depending on how you look at it. Her betrayal, her actions, letting Micah into our home and allowing him to hurt our son, had burned the last of whatever love I had left for her. "I want a divorce," I told my attorney, Mr. Reynolds. "Full custody. She's unfit." He nodded, flipping through files. "The evidence is solid. And with Micah's criminal background? She doesn't stand a chance." But he paused. "James, we have to talk about the house." I leaned forward. "What about it?" He hesitated. "If Claire fights for her share, the mansion may be considered marital property unless there's something in your paperwork that—" I stopped breathing. That's when Ethan, sitting quietly at the edge of the conference room, looked up and said, "But the house isn't theirs. It's mine." Reynolds and I stared at him. "What?" I asked, stunned. Ethan shrugged. "Don't you remember, Dad? Years ago, you and Mom signed some papers saying the house was mine. You told me it was to protect it. In case your business ever got in trouble." My mind went blank. Then it came rushing back. He was right. 8 years ago, our financial advisor had recommended transferring the title of the house into Ethan's name, something about protecting assets if the company ever faced legal issues. I thought it was overkill at the time. But we did it. And I had the papers in my office safe. Claire must have forgotten. Or assumed I had. I leapt from my chair, raced home, and dug through the safe. And there it was. Official property deed. Owner, Ethan Ryan. Signed by me and Claire. Dated. Notarized. Ironclad. I returned to the lawyer's office breathless, document in hand. Reynolds smiled slowly. "Well, this just changed everything." At that moment, I felt something shift in the air. The balance of power. For the first time in weeks, I held the upper hand. Claire didn't know it yet, but the mansion she thought she'd fight for. She never had a claim to it in the first place. The house belonged to Ethan. My son. The boy she'd betrayed. And now, the stage was set. For justice. I stood in my office, the deed to the mansion trembling in my hands. I hadn't just found a legal document. I'd found my weapon. For weeks, I'd been drowning in betrayal. Powerless. But now, I held something Claire didn't even remember signing, a silent piece of paper that could burn her entire scheme to ash. The mansion, the crown jewel of our family's legacy, wasn't hers. It was Ethan's. Claire had brought a criminal into our son's life. Tied him to a chair. Lied to me. Humiliated me. And now, she thought she'd saunter into court, take half of everything I'd built, and maybe even custody? No. Not anymore. Now I had leverage. And I intended to use it, every shred. Are you sure you want to go all in? My attorney asked the next morning. We were in his downtown office, a wall of glass behind him overlooking the city. I'm not just sure, I said. I need to. He nodded, then leaned in. James, we're going to take this step by step. You've got the evidence. The video your son took. The documents proving ownership of the house. Micah's arrest. Claire's involvement. But this is going to get ugly. Are you ready for that? I didn't blink. She made our son cry in fear. I'm not just ready. I'm done being the victim. We began preparing everything. Witness statements. Timelines. Financials. But more than legal strategy, I started planning something deeper. Something poetic. Claire didn't just need to lose in court. She needed to understand what she'd thrown away. She needed to stand in front of everything she ever wanted, and watch it slip away forever. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to fight dirty. I was going to be calm. Cold. Clean. I changed the locks on the mansion. Froze our joint accounts, legally, with court approval. Closed the credit cards she used to splurge on designer clothes and nights out with criminals. Within days, she was calling non-stop. I didn't pick up. Then came the messages. James, what are you doing? You can't just lock me out of my house. My house? I almost laughed. She was unraveling. And I was just getting started. Claire had always relied on charm and manipulation to get her way. But I had something she couldn't fake. The truth. And soon, so would the court. 1 week later. Claire's lawyer sent over their proposed settlement terms. My hands shook as I read it. She wanted 50% of all assets, including the $10 million mansion, and primary custody of Ethan, claiming I was an emotionally distant father who traveled too much. She was trying to spin her betrayal into my failure as a husband and father. That was her strategy. Lie. Smear. Pretend. But it didn't matter. Because in my back pocket, I had the ace. That deed. That night, I sat Ethan down in the kitchen, the very place where, not long ago, Claire and Micah had laughed while I was halfway across the country. Ethan munched on crackers, kicking his legs under the chair. Dad, he asked, what happens now? I looked at him. My son. My reason. Now. I said, smiling softly. Now we remind the world what happens when people think they can destroy a good man and walk away. He nodded slowly, with something fierce behind his eyes. I didn't ask him to testify. He offered. He wanted the judge to hear what happened. To see what his mother had become. That she wasn't the warm, laughing woman from the beach photos. She was someone else now. Someone dangerous. The day before court, I made one final move. Claire's lawyer had sent over a revised settlement offer, less aggressive, but still demanding joint custody. I responded by sending them a single-page fax. Attached to it, a copy of the deed. With Ethan's name on it. Signed by Claire. Stamped and sealed. No threats. No commentary. Just facts. I heard nothing from them after that. But I knew they'd received it, because the next morning in court, Claire didn't make eye contact. She walked in quietly. Wearing black again, like she was at a funeral. Maybe she was. Because the woman who had once ruled over this family like a queen. She was about to be dethroned in front of everyone. And she had no idea the next blow would come from the person she hurt most. Her son. The courtroom was cold. Sterile. The kind of place where emotions were expected to die at the door. But mine were very much alive. Ethan sat beside me, dressed in a neat navy blazer and a tie that made him look older than his 10 years. He squeezed my hand tightly. I looked at him, nodded once. "We've got this," I whispered. Across the aisle, Claire sat stiff in her seat, her blonde hair pulled into a tight bun, lips painted in the same red she used to wear on our anniversaries. But there was no celebration here. Only reckoning. Her lawyer, a young, sharply dressed woman, stood first. She launched into a well-rehearsed monologue about how Claire had been abandoned emotionally due to my workaholism, how she'd merely sought companionship in a difficult time, and how she never knowingly exposed her child to danger. Not once did they mention Micah's criminal record. Not once did they mention Ethan being tied up. I sat there, jaw locked, fingers clenched, until the judge motioned for my attorney. Mr. Reynolds stood like a quiet storm, steady and calm, but ready to strike. "Your Honor, while the opposing party attempts to downplay the severity of what happened, we will now submit indisputable evidence of negligence, endangerment, and betrayal of trust." He played the video. The one Ethan had filmed secretly. The one where Claire laughed in the living room with Micah, arms draped over each other like high school lovers. The one where the camera shook, but her betrayal was clear as day. Claire's expression flickered. Her lawyer squirmed. Then Reynolds handed the judge the documents, Micah's criminal profile, the police report, and the deed. The property in question, the $10 million mansion, was legally transferred to their son, Ethan Ryan, 8 years ago, with both parents' signatures. Therefore, this is not a marital asset. The courtroom went silent. Claire's mouth parted slightly, like she wanted to say something, but couldn't find the words. The judge scanned the papers, then looked at her. "Mrs. Ryan, do you dispute the authenticity of this deed?" She opened her mouth. Closed it. Shook her head. I didn't remember signing it," she muttered. The judge nodded, expression unreadable. "Let the record show the house belongs to the minor, Ethan Ryan. It is not subject to asset division." That's when Ethan stood up. The courtroom attendants glanced over, startled. "Your Honor," he said clearly. "May I say something?" I started to tell him to sit, but the judge raised a hand, curious. "You may." Ethan walked to the stand, looking far smaller than he did just seconds ago. But his voice didn't shake. "My mom used to be nice. She used to make pancakes with me on Sundays and tell me stories at bedtime. But then she changed. She stopped talking to Dad. She got mad all the time. Then one day, this man named Micah started coming around." He looked directly at the judge. "One night, when Dad was gone, she told me I was being disrespectful and that Micah would teach me a lesson. They tied me to a chair. I was really scared." The courtroom gasped. Claire bowed her head, shoulders trembling. "I recorded them laughing," Ethan continued. "Because I knew it wasn't right. I tried to be brave. But I missed my dad." He glanced at me, eyes shining. "I want to stay with my dad. He came back for me. He always comes back." The judge's face softened. He cleared his throat. "Thank you, Ethan. You're very brave." Ethan returned to his seat and held my hand again, this time with a new kind of grip. The judge turned to Claire. "Mrs. Ryan, given the overwhelming evidence, including endangerment, knowledge of a fugitive staying in the home, and your own son's testimony, this court cannot in good conscience award you custody." Claire wept. "I didn't know he was dangerous," she whispered. "I was just lonely." The judge was unmoved. "Custody is awarded fully to Mr. James Ryan. As for financial settlements, the mansion is off the table. The court will discuss any remaining liquid assets in a separate hearing." I let out a slow breath. It was done. No screaming. No vengeance taken in anger. Just facts. And the quiet power of truth. Claire tried to speak to Ethan as we walked out of the courtroom. "Ethan, please. I'm still your mother." He looked at her, expression unreadable, and said only, "I needed you. And you picked him." Then he walked away. And I followed him, feeling, for the first time in months, like I was finally walking towards something again, rather than away from everything. For days after the hearing, there was quiet. Not peace. Not yet. But quiet. Claire vanished. No calls. No texts. Not even a legal appeal. I expected her to fight, to scream, to claw her way back into Ethan's life, or at least into the house. But nothing came. Then, a letter arrived. White envelope. No return address. Just my name in her delicate handwriting. Inside was a single page. Neat cursive. No anger. Just, hollow. "James. I know you hate me. I deserve it. I lost everything because of one decision. One man. I thought he would fill the void. I thought I'd hurt you and make you notice me again. But all I did was destroy the only good thing I ever had, our son. I'm sorry. I don't expect forgiveness. I just hope someday Ethan can remember the good parts of me. Claire." I read it twice. Maybe 3 times. But I didn't feel what I thought I would. Not rage. Not satisfaction. Just emptiness. Because truthfully, Claire was already gone long before she walked out of that courtroom. But the story wasn't over. Not yet. Because as I began putting my life back together, piece by piece, rebuilding the company, helping Ethan heal, I got a call. It was from a federal investigator out of Houston. "Mr. Ryan," the man said, "I'm calling regarding Micah Reed." I stiffened. He's agreed to a plea deal. In exchange, he's giving us full testimony about his operations, and those who helped him. I frowned. What does that have to do with me? The line went silent for a moment. "Sir, are you aware that your wife, Claire Ryan, opened a series of joint accounts with Micah under an alias? We have records of wire transfers, money laundering through shell companies connected to your software firm." My knees went weak. "No," I breathed. "That's not possible. She wasn't involved in my business. She accessed accounts tied to the company. Ones only she and your former CFO had limited credentials to." "You're not under investigation," he added quickly. "But I thought you'd want to know. If you'd like to press charges, or sue for damages, we're preparing a full case." I sat down, hard. So that was it. Claire hadn't just betrayed me emotionally. She'd betrayed me financially. Legally. She hadn't just brought a criminal into my home, she'd helped him. I dug into my business records, called my new accountant, and together we confirmed it: unauthorized transfers, duplicate invoice chains, ghost vendors. Thousands of dollars bled from the company during the year Claire claimed she was lonely. She wasn't just hurting me. She was robbing me. And suddenly, I saw everything with new eyes. The designer bags. The sudden interest in my financial accounts. Her push to refinance the house before I transferred it to Ethan. It had all been calculated. All of it. And I hadn't just narrowly escaped with my son's life. I'd narrowly escaped financial ruin. Micah may have been the blade, but Claire was the hand behind it. My attorney was shocked. "We can go after her civilly," he said. "Even press charges. If this goes to court." But I stopped him. "No," I said. "She's already lost her son. Her home. Her reputation." He nodded slowly. "So this is it?" "No," I replied. "This is the part where I win. Not by dragging her through another courtroom, but by living." And I meant it. Still, I made one final decision. I filed a permanent restraining order against Claire. For Ethan's sake. So she couldn't show up unannounced or try to manipulate him again. And I made sure the federal case against Micah included every detail she'd ever touched. Her fingerprints would forever be tied to a criminal record, not because I wanted revenge anymore. But because I refused to let her rewrite the truth. Not after what she did. 6 months later, the mansion didn't feel haunted anymore. The broken glass had long been replaced. The walls were painted warmer colors. Ethan and I had built a new bookshelf together. He picked out curtains for his room. We even rescued another dog, a golden retriever he named Scout. We were healing. Not fast. Not all at once. But piece by piece. Some nights, Ethan still asked questions. Why did Mom let that happen? Did she really stop loving us? I never had perfect answers. But I always told the truth. Some people get lost, son. They don't mean to hurt you. But when they do, it's your job to protect yourself, and the people you love. He'd nod quietly, then go back to his book or snuggle closer. We went to therapy. Took weekend trips. I started working from home more, choosing fatherhood over boardrooms for the first time in years. And one evening, Ethan came into my office, holding a piece of paper. "What's this?" I asked. "It's something I wrote for school. We were supposed to write about our hero." He shrugged. "I picked you." I opened it, hands trembling. The first line hit me like a freight train. My dad saved me, even when I didn't know I needed saving. I couldn't finish it. I just pulled him into my arms and cried. That night, I sat by the fireplace, alone, staring at the flickering flames. I thought about everything Claire had taken from me. But more importantly, I thought about what she'd failed to take. My soul. My son. My future. She had written me a second letter a few weeks earlier, this one even shorter than the last. I lost everything. You didn't have to make sure I stayed lost. Claire. I never responded. Some ghosts are better left unanswered. She left the state, from what I heard. Moved somewhere north. Quiet. No trace online. I hope she found some version of redemption. But I also know she'll live the rest of her life with the memory of what she did to a 10-year-old boy who trusted her, and the husband she betrayed with both her heart and her hands. As for Micah, he was sentenced to 12 years without parole. His face pops up in local news occasionally. But it no longer sends chills through my body. Just pity. He was dangerous. But Claire invited him in. That's something I'll never forget. And never let happen again. Today, Ethan is doing better than ever. He got into a magnet science program for middle school. He wants to be an aerospace engineer. His teachers say he's quiet, focused, driven, but kind. He tells them he lives with his dad in a big house with 2 dogs and a history. I like that. A history. Not a horror story. Not a tragedy. Just a past we lived through, and survived. Now, when I walk through the halls of the mansion, I don't see Claire anymore. I see progress. I see strength. I see my son, laughing with his friends in the garden, reading under the oak tree, building a new life with bricks made from everything we endured. And when I look in the mirror, I don't see a man who was betrayed. I see a man who rose. A father who fought. A survivor who didn't just get justice. He rebuilt joy. In the end, truth has a way of surfacing, even if it comes twisted through pain and betrayal. As one wise voice once said, sometimes your greatest enemy was once your closest ally. If this story struck a chord with you, let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, share, and spread the word, because justice deserves to be heard.